Hi everybody, I'm Bill Brennan, welcoming you to another edition of Honolulu on the Move, the show that brings you the latest news and information about the Honolulu Rail Transit Project. You know, one of the most exciting aspects of our rail transit project is the potential it brings to enhance our neighborhoods, especially very near the 21 rail stations that we'll have. And the man in charge of putting together our transit-oriented development program, as it's known, is Mr. Harrison Rue. He's my guest this week, seated to my immediate left. Harrison, welcome to Honolulu on the Move. Thanks for being with us.
So good to be here, Bill.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've been in this job now about 3 months, right?
Yeah. We're just delighted to be able to come back to Honolulu. I lived and worked here with my family 12 to 15 years ago,
Right,
working on some similar projects. And we had a lot of fun then. We really felt like this is where we want to be. I had to go back to mainland to take care of aging parents, and we lived and worked there for a dozen years. But it's really great to have the opportunity to come back. Really excited about the program. Mayor Caldwell is really clear that the TOD and community building program is about enhancing neighborhoods, and it is meant to make sure that we're going to have great customer delivery system and access to the rail station, but it's primarily about using our investment in rail to make neighborhoods better.
Yes, very good. And to that end, we've been at this a while, trying to come up with TOD programs and plans. Where do we stand today? What have we done so far?
I think we're in great shape planning-wise, and at the beginnings of an implementation strategy. We're a little bit behind in executing and implementing and building stuff. There was a whole couple-year period there where not much was happening because of rail lawsuits and things like that. Yes. So we're a little behind in the development, but I think we're going to be able to catch up. The community has been working closely with Department of Planning and Permitting to develop draft neighborhood TOD plans for about 6 of the 8 main grouping areas. We've got some images that I could sort of show as we go along.
Sure.
We could pull up the first one. If we could get that first map up.
There you go.
This is an example. I'm going to kind of move from Eva End towards downtown. When you look at the school area around US West Oahu Station area, there's a desire for that to really be sort of a neighborhood focus. We go to the next slide, and people want to see essentially more of a campus-like Main Street feel around the station eventually. There's nothing built there now, so the plan, working with the university's developers, the plan calls for real more Main Street feel. Let's go along to the next one. When you go up to Waipahu, near Waipahu Transit Center, there's Old Depot Road.
That's what it looks like today.
Yeah, looks like today,
yes.
And people really want to flip to the next one. Want to see Old Town revitalized, more shop stores, more pedestrian activity. Some minor streetscape improvements to make it a real, restore the old downtown feel. Good for business, good for local business.
And you're getting, pardon the interruption, the input from the community to come up with
I
these.
should mention, let's hold on the drawings for a minute. It's really important to know that there's been at least 3 big public workshops so far on every one of these plans. There's been stakeholder groups, surveys of residents, meetings with stakeholders, groups of businesses. So tremendous input into each and every one of these. I think there's draft plans for 14 of the 21 station area stops. They'll all be coming back before Planning Commission and Council over the next year to get reviewed, fine-tuned, adopted, and then we're working at the same time on zoning code. So all of that is with input from neighborhoods, businesses, industry folks. When we bring the draft zoning codes out, we want everybody to look at those to make sure they're actually going to deliver on the vision.
Right.
So all these pretty pictures are really a lot of input so far, and that's just the beginning.
Right, that's good. Let's go back then to see where we were there. West Lot?
So there's an industrial area that leads from it's really the kind of the Westlock area shopping center down Mackay to Pearl Harbor, and right now it looks like an industrial area. If the landowners there, it's about 3 or 4 blocks long, if they decided they want to move to more of a Main Street and residential feel next, you could see it turn into something over time that's a real new Main Street on Le'ole. Again, it's only going to be a plan and codes and zoning unless the property owners really decide they want to go ahead and make these investments. But
Right.
this will now be legal instead of illegal, which is a big change from the zoning. If you want to mix uses, build housing, things like that, this could be a real long-term idea.
Nice.
Let's go to the next one. Really, when you look at Leeward Community College, right now there's just a parking lot there, but the plan calls for the parking lot to eventually be allowed to develop over time into a real kind of Main Street district and redevelopment right next to the transit station. So what's now just sort of a buffer between the parking lot could look like this, which is it could be a real campus
Yes,
quad.
that's what I was
What you see at a real school instead of just a commuter school with people living nearby. That's one of the more exciting ones that we think. I should mention another thing, Bill. When we talk about implementation, I'm reminded, looking at these two schools, we know that broadband access, really super broadband access is really critical to schools and to economic development. So our IT guys have figured out that we'll be able to put in hyper broadband, much more capacity than, say, Google is putting in Kansas City,
right,
in conduits in the concrete guideways. So they'll be virtually fairly storm-proof, not flooded because they're up, not blown over.
right.
And then they can be brought in conduit to the nearby development. So for our schools and for the economic development potential in the future, tremendous economic development jobs and learning capacity in those new cables.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Let's go to the next shot. This is an image of what, if you remember Pearl Highlands Center right now with the sort of colored roofs. If that developer chose to redevelop on their parking lots over time, it would now be legal to have more of a pedestrian-oriented center where the parking lot stands right now, because this is right next to one of the transit stations, as well as what'll be a new 1,600 space parking garage for commuters.
Yes.
So you could be, someplace Eva or Mililani and carpool down to that new parking garage, stop for breakfast here, and be downtown about 20-25 minutes.
Right. That's great.
Here's an example of potential improvements along Kahunohi Street leading there's a new development proposed for the old Cam Drive-In site,
Right.
called Live, Work, Play Aiea.
Yes.
And these street improvements would lead down towards the Pearl Ridge Gateway area where the new station is.
Yes.
We're proposing, at least floating the idea of maybe having some housing built on top of a proposed bus transfer station right next to the rail station. You often hear about, TOD on rail stations. Well, this is like bus TOD, on top of the station, and that could be developed with a new park that leads right down to connect to the Pearl Ridge, the Pearl Harbor Trail,
Yes.
which is already there, but
Right.
it could look a lot better. Let's go to the next one. That's what the trail could look like with housing developed along it, leading
I
up to the
see.
train station.
Uh-huh.
The next image. So here in the Kapalama station, you can see in blue is Honolulu Community College. You notice this is the third college campus
Yes.
with rail right there,
Right.
which is really good planning, I think. But the Kapalama Canal is right there, kind of on the edge between Kalihi and Iwilei. And next image, folks have been really asking for a while. You can see maybe potential for a couple new buildings on the edge of HCC on the canal. Next. And what the canal could look like if improved over time.
Nice.
So this is one of the three major catalytic projects that Mayor Caldwell and our TOD sub-cabinet have selected to really focus on for the next year to try and move these along. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about the catalytics in a minute. Let's see if we have another image or two. Yeah, folks have, we don't have the before and afters loaded, but that idea for a mixed-use development is actually shown as on top of the Costco parking lot. So if the people that own that area decided to take more advantage, it would now be legal to build a mixed use. In our dreams, IKEA would come, but
Right.
we just put the sign up. There's no promises at all, but it could be something like that.
Sure.
They call it Grayfield redevelopment, redeveloping on top of parking garages.
Those all look great, and I think it's important again to emphasize these drawings come because community members and business leaders and others in those communities from West Oahu down through Iwilei have told you this is the kind of thing they would like to see. They'd like to see outdoor seating with umbrella tables along the Kapalama Canal kind of thing with some some sort of housing nearby.
Yeah, those planning efforts have actually been going on for about 6 or 7 years, and most people in any neighborhood have only seen their plan, and been in, a few hundred people in every neighborhood have been involved. Most people don't know about it yet, you know, as is the case in any planning workshops. But now we're finally, this fall, we came out with the overall strategy and have been working on an implementation strategy.
Right. So I sense that you want to kind of jumpstart a few projects so that people and we involved with the project can kind of get a look at something that, sooner rather than later, of what TOD principles applied to redevelopment and enhancement of neighborhoods could look like.
Yeah.
So what sort of things are you looking at there? You mentioned the HCC Kapalama Canal as one.
Yeah, there's so at the end of that process of looking at where to start, to cut to the chase, it's Kapalama Canal in Kalihi, Neil Blaisdell Center downtown, and the Pearl Ridge Gateway Center that we just talked about on the prior slide. So those three are going to be one of our main focal points. Not saying that there's not stuff going on everywhere else.
Right.
Our DTS folks under Mike Formby are going out actually with a whole bunch of other departments and looking at every one of the stations in the EVA end in November and December, so that when the first section starts in just under 4 years, we'll be looking to make sure that the sidewalks are fixed and bike lanes and some of the sort of smaller scale improvements to make it more walkable and safer are done by then.
Right.
And that'll be across all those. And then we'll go ahead next and look at the ones that'll be opening in 6 years and make sure, again, that the basic infrastructure is improved. As part of that, you'll get into major projects as well in a few of those areas, but kind of equally across all of them, just make them more accessible.
When we were looking at those slides, you mentioned that should the property owner or should the landowner desire to do some of these things, it will now be legal to do so, where without the TOD kind of zoning laws, it would be illegal to do. Do you find around the country that, in fact, private landowners do want to make those kinds of investments?
Yes, and again, it varies around the country. From here, every place is unique. Even along our own rail line in Oahu, people are more interested in certain areas than others.
Sure.
Some developers are more interested than others. And the good news is we don't need everybody working on every station, on every building to get this rolling.
Yes.
And I think our job in the public sector is to have a plan that captures what people have said they want to see happen over time, that kind of sparks some interest in interested developers, and there are many of those that are coming to us to talk, and then makes it easier for anybody interested to do something. So from the combination of permits and zoning codes and sort of help navigating all the stuff that you have to do to make sure there's sewer capacity there, to make sure that the multimodal transportation system, not driving, walking, biking, transit, works to get customers to your business. And all of those efforts are being, I think, fairly well coordinated, and I think we're going to see results over the next few years.
Right. Because I know when we talk about some of the economic benefits of the rail system, we talk about naturally jobs, construction jobs first come to mind, other indirect jobs for people who supply or are subcontractors for some of the services that are needed to build the project. But there's also the element of investment in and around stations that comes not so much from the government letting contracts, but more from private sector investment that also helps boost the economy. And this is the kind of thing we're looking for, yes?
Yes, and the majority of the buildings built, and majority of that investment will be done by the private sector. Many of them, as they build, will be improving the streetscape next to their project. Some of the kind of connecting the dots investments are going to have to come from the city and other public agencies, public funds to kind of connect the dots between new developments and the station. I think that we're going to, the biggest issue is really, not to try and spread the peanut butter too thin. So, I think that's the idea of, focusing a little bit so that you can see stuff and imagine it, on both sides of the same street for a couple blocks. Or
Yes.
all four corners of an intersection.
Right.
And once people kind of see that and kick the tires and sit in the outdoor cafe, they'll be able to think, well, this could happen in my neighborhood. I
Yes.
don't believe the pretty pictures, but I went and sat in a place like that, and that really
That was
worked.
fun, yeah. Speaking of that, I know last month in November, the Department of Planning and Permitting and your TOD division put on a symposium at the Blaisdell that I happened to attend, and I saw a couple hundred other people in attendance there. Tell us what the symposium was meant to do and how that went.
Sure. We had about 3 or 4 goals. One, of course, since DPP had been working on these plans for years, we wanted to go ahead and show them to everybody in one, sort of one fell swoop, and then introduce the implementation strategy and the sub-cabinet and our work to try and implement it. So,
Right.
Good presentation. We brought in a few outside experts, both mainland and local, to sort of, that's why we call it a symposium. There were some talking heads with some pretty interesting stories and facts. Most folks found it, that part pretty inspiring. But the main thing we really want to do is kind of really get in everybody's mind that the TOD is really about placemaking and enhancing neighborhoods. We've been talking about Honolulu on the Move and the transit, for years and years.
Yes.
And now it's time to turn our attention and the public's attention onto the neighborhoods. So we invited a new hui of folks, Better Block Hawaii. They're in process of incorporating as a nonprofit, but they've been working on some of those kind of streetscape improvements like they had in May in Kaka'ako, where you mock up what
Yes.
the street could look like.
Yes.
I wanted them to take the same energy and creativity and do that for parks. Because if you saw all the pretty pictures we just showed, there's all these little green squares
Yes,
in them
there
and pretty,
are.
pretty trees. and
Yes.
That takes work to make happen. On our side, in the city's Kuleana, we've got our 3 different departments working to figure out how we're going to maintain those. But we wanted to hear from the public, what do they want to see in them? These are new kind of urban parks and gathering spaces, not the big ball fields.
Right.
So we asked Better Block Hawaii folks to do an exercise outside, and it was probably the coolest, most fun planning work I've ever done. It was just great. They went and scrounged chairs off of people's patios and painted them all a family of kind of colors, and got books and volleyball nets and all kinds of activities outside to basically make a train station, an outdoor plaza, a park space, and then sort of a streetscape. If you've been to the typical convention or whatever, you've got tables and exhibits and everything. Well, we went ahead and had people print stuff up to put on the walls like they were on a street, and then just sit. The Heart Table was just sitting at a
Yes.
cafe table talking story out on a
Right.
really nice lanai.
Yes.
So it had a very different feel, and that kind of third place, between work and home. Everybody wants a third place to hang out, whether it's a park or a coffee shop or your house of worship. And so we were trying to create that outside the convention center. And it was wildly successful. The people that run Blaisdell are sitting there looking at this and thinking, we should have all our meetings have an option like this to
Yeah.
come out and hang out, and why can't we have First Friday on Ward Avenue and just all the artists come gather there and have ice cream. So
Yes.
it was a little transformative from us on public sector to entrust that whole thing to a bunch of volunteer young people and have it come off so astoundingly well.
So, from what you've said so far, what you're hearing from people that they want includes green space, obviously some sort of pedestrian-friendly walkability in these neighborhoods. How about affordable housing or housing?
Yeah, sure. That's a big issue, independent of TOD and rail. That's been a big issue here for a long
Sure.
time. It's just expensive. People don't make as much compared to what the housing costs are, and so there's a lot of overcrowding and things like that. So, with TOD, part of what we're doing, we're also working on kind of overall refreshing the housing strategy and making, we'll be ready in a couple of months to propose some stuff to council. But in the TOD focused areas, we really want a strategy that, affordable housing may not be the only thing you want to talk about. There's middle class housing. There, a lot of the stuff you see in Kaka'ako tends to be on the higher end, although
Yeah.
there's a lot of reserve housing that's required there too. But there needs to be both stuff that is more affordable and a different mix of types. You need some very small units for the young person first moving out of Ohana housing. Four generations living together. They've got a professional job, can afford their own first place. It could be very small with some shared amenities where they hang out with their kids. Sort of different type. We need, as we move into the building more condos and multi-story. If you have a family, you've been used to thinking the only place you got to live is a new single-family home or apartment out, in Eva or Kapolei. Young people over the next 10 years who are used to living and hanging out car-free in Kaka'ako. By the way, I should mention that of the Better Block folks that put this on, young mid-career professionals, one of them owned a car. Every other one of them gets around by walk, bike, and bus.
Yeah.
So those are the people who are going to have families and think, I don't want to lose that, but I need a bigger place, for families. So that range of product types and of housing, some of that we're going to be able to get by essentially trading for community benefits. Our new proposed zoning that's going to be going before council next year will basically say, if you want the extra height, you need to provide some affordable and middle class housing, at a range of price points, some very affordable, some, just under the reserve level. And you have to provide more of that in return for the density.
Right.
Some levels will require public subsidy for the lowest price point, or maybe building on some land that is available by the public. We're exploring the idea of a new land trust that would be run by a nonprofit, and a land trust retains the ownership of the land, so the people are free to sell their unit, but the land stays, you're not having to pay for that, and it stays in the land trust. So that makes it much more affordable as well.
Right.
So combination of additional density, height, potentially building on public land, exploring some things like real estate tax credits or GET tax credits to contribute into the affordable housing deals.
Right. You mentioned car-free, and I think there are a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds who have gone away to school on the continental U.S. and have gone to school in cities where there is rail, and they get around fine without a car. And part of TOD, I think, is we have such a huge congestion problem here on the island that good transit-oriented development can actually help kind of relieve some of that congestion and relieve the need for some of the cars.
Well, this is America. I think it's all about choice. And
Yes.
right now, in a lot of places in America, you only have the choice of driving or walking 20 miles,
Right.
But here we have a good transit system already. So there's lots of neighborhoods where people live where they do have a lot of choice. In Kalihi, around 50% of people walk, bike, or take bus already.
Yeah.
There are places like that people are taking advantage of it. What the rail is going to do is really unlock the whole urban center out to Eva and to all those folks, real convenient travel.
Yes.
Much quicker than the bus, and so you'll have access in your day. You could zip and have lunch a couple train stops away and get back within your lunch period.
Sure.
If you live near TOD at transit station and you work near transit station, we think that right now about 40% of the island's jobs are along the rail line, which is way more than any of the other new train systems.
Yeah.
We're already in good shape, and that's likely to double over the next 40 years or so that a lot of the jobs are at transit stations. But that choice also includes making sure that the streets are safe to walk and convenient, and they should be fun and delightful as well, which is part of that, the new planning thinking,
Right.
Placemaking as well as streets.
Where do you see things going here in the next year? We're almost out of time.
Sure,
so.
sure. Well, first thing, I do want to mention that
Yes.
if you missed the symposium last month, we still have, for those of you who are social media savvy, the TOD Honolulu Wishes hashtag. And
Yeah.
so we put these frames up all over town. The Better Blocks folks helped us with this. And at TOD, if you just take a picture and do hashtag TOD Honolulu Wishes, it shows up on any social media when you plug that in. So we're encouraging people to take a frame and add a comment. I wish there were more cool water features where kids can play near all rail stations, or I wish there were more designated bike lanes.
Yes.
So we want to make that an ongoing way to give us input. When you want to give it, you don't have to wait to come to a meeting or
Right.
wait to see something on our website. You send it in anytime, post it for the world to see, and we'll kind of agglomerate all those as part of our input.
Very nice. Harrison, we're out of time, and I wish we had more. We'll do this again sometime. Thanks for being
Pleasure.
with us today.
Thanks so much, Paul.
You know, we try to make it easy for you to stay in touch with the happenings of the rail project, and here's just a few of the ways you can do that. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on our next Honolulu on the Move show, go ahead and hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. Just two of the places where you can stay informed with up-to-date information on the Honolulu Rail Transit Project. And you can view our latest project videos on YouTube or Vimeo. If you'd like more information on the project or would like a presentation to your group or organization, give us a call at our project hotline at 566-2299. Or contact us via our website at honolulutransit.org. By the way, we've redesigned our project website. Visitors to honolulutransit.org will find it a more colorful, interactive, and user-friendly site. You'll be able to keep up with the latest news and information about the project, important meeting dates, times, and locations, and examine the official documents that are guiding the project's planning and construction. Take some time to visit the new and improved honolulutransit.org. And don't forget that you can also join us here every Sunday night at 4:30 p.m. on Olelo Channel 54. On behalf of all of us on the project team, mahalo for joining us today. Enjoy your holidays, and we'll see you again next time for another edition of Honolulu on the Move.